Today, we will discuss chapter Print Culture and the Modern World of Class 10th from History NCERT book. After reading first part of this chapter, you will be able to examine and enumerate the development of print from its beginning in East Asia to its expansion in Europe. You will be able to analyze the impact of the spread of technology and consider how social life and culture changed with the coming of the print. Dear students, don't you think it is so difficult to imagine a world without printed matter? Yes, of course it is. We find evidence of print everywhere around us in books, journals, newspapers, prints of famous paintings, and also in everyday things like theatre, programs, official circulars, calendar, diaries, advertisements, cinema posters at the street corner, etc. In this chapter, we will look at the development of print from its beginning in East Asia to its expansion in Europe. Students, the picture shows a royal workshop in the 16th century, much before printing began in India. The text being dictated, written, and illustrated. The art of writing and illustrating by hand was important in the age before print. Can you imagine what would have happened to these forms of art with the coming of printing machines? China, Japan, and Korea developed the earliest kind of print technology, which was a system of hand printing. Books in China were printed with rubbing paper from AD 594, and both sides of the books were folded and stitched. China, for a long time, was the major producer of printed material. China started conducting civil service examination for its bureaucrats, and its textbooks were printed in vast numbers. Chinese accordion books was folded and stitched at the side, as both sides of the thin porous sheets could not be printed. These were hand printed, and skilled craftsmen could duplicate it with beautiful and stylized writing known as calligraphy. Now I would like to show you an example of how the accordion books look like. Students, you can also make your own accordion book, and you can also make cards by this manner. And here on this is a handwritten which we call calligraphy. Print was no longer confined to scholar officials, merchants also used this print while collecting their trade information. Reading became a part of leisure activity, and rich women started publishing their own poetry and plays. This new reading mania attracted new technology in the late 19th century. Western printing techniques and mechanical presses were imported. Shanghai became the hub of the new print culture. Print in Japan. Hand printing technology was introduced by the Buddhist missionaries from China into Japan around AD 768 to 770. The Buddhist Diamond Sutra is the oldest Japanese book printed in AD 868, containing 6 sheets of text and woodcut illustrations. Printing of visual material led to interesting publishing practices. In the late 19th century, illustrative collections of paintings depicted an elegant urban culture, and libraries and bookstores were packed with hand-printed material of various types, like books on women, musical instruments, etc. In the late 18th century, in the flourishing urban circles at Edo, later to be known as Tokyo, illustrated collection of paintings depicted an elegant urban culture. Ukiyo, pictures of the floating world. Ordinary human expressions were depicted through ukiyo. You can see an ukiyo print by Kitagawa Utamaro. A morning scene is shown here. Ukiyo print by Shunman Kubo, late 18th century, he made this. In the year 1295, Marco Polo returned to Italy in Europe after exploring China, and along with him he brought the knowledge of wood block printing, and soon the technology spread to other parts of Europe. Gradually, the demands of books started increasing, so booksellers began exporting books to many different countries. Luxury editions were still handwritten on very expensive vellum. Vellum is a parchment made from the skin of animals, meant for aristocratic circles and rich monastic libraries. But the production of handwritten manuscripts could not satisfy the ever increasing demand for books. Europe widely started using wood blocks to print textiles, playing cards, and religious pictures with simple, brief text. On Gutenberg developed the first known printing press in the 1430s. Before discussing Gutenberg and the printing press, I would like to tell you about the difference between a manuscript and inscriptions and a woodblock printing. While manuscripts are handwritten, inscriptions were written on the hard surfaces. On Gutenberg developed the first known printing press in the 1430s. Gutenberg was an expert in the art of polishing stones, and with this knowledge, he adapted existing technology to design his innovation. The olive press provided the model for the printing press, and molds were used for casting the metal types for the letters of the alphabet were printed. By 1448, Gutenberg perfected the system. The first book he printed was the Bible. About 180 copies were printed, and it took 3 years to produce them. By the standards of the time, this was the fast production. The art of producing books by hand was not entirely displaced. Books printed for the rich left blank space for the decoration by hand. In the 100 years between 1450 to 1550, printing presses were set up in most countries of the Europe. The shift from hand printing to the mechanical printing led to print revolution. Here you see the image of Gutenberg printing press. Notice the long handle attached to the screw. This handle was used to turn screw and press down the platen over the printing block that was placed on the top of a sheet of a damp paper. Gutenberg developed metal types for each of the 26 characters of the Roman alphabet and devised a way of moving them around so as to compose different words of the text. This came to be known as movable type printing machine. The Gutenberg press could print 250 sheets on one side per hour. Look at the picture showing a printer's workshop in 16th century. Here you see compositor and galley. Compositor is the person who composes the text for printing. Galley means a metal frame in which types are laid and text is composed. Let us now discuss topic print revolution and its impact. The print revolution is not only a new way of producing books, it transformed the lives of people, changing their relationship to information and knowledge, and with institutions and authorities. It influenced popular perceptions and opened up new ways of looking at things. The cost of books was reduced due to the print revolution. Markets were flooded with books reaching out to an ever growing readership. It created a new culture of reading. Earlier, elites are only permitted to read books, and common people used to hear sacred texts read out. Before the print revolution, books were expensive, but the transition was not as simple, as books could only be read by the literate. Printers started publishing popular ballads and folk tales, illustrated with pictures for those who did not read. Oral culture entered print, and printed material were orally transmitted. Here I would like to tell you what a ballad is. It is a historical account or folk tale in verse, usually sung or recited. This is one of the many images produced in early modern Europe, celebrating the coming of print. You can see the printing press descending from heaven, carried by the goddess. On the two sides of the goddess, blessing the machine, are Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, and Mercury, the messenger god, also symbolizing reason. The women in the foreground are holding plaques with the portrait of six pioneer printers of different countries. In the middle ground, on the left, figure encircled is the portrait of Gutenberg. Print introduced a new world of debate and discussion. Printed books are not welcomed by everyone, and many were apprehensive of the effects that the wider circulation of books could have on people's minds. There was a fear of spreading rebellious. Reformer Martin Luther wrote 95 theses cruising many of the practices and rituals of the Roman Catholic Church. His textbook printed copy led to the division within the Church and to the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. Here I would like to tell you what is the Protestant Reformation. It is a 16th century movement to reform the Catholic Church dominated by Rome. In the 16th century, Menocchia, a miller in Italy, began to read books available in his locality. He reinterpreted the message of the Bible and formulated a view of God and creation that enraged the Roman Catholic Church. Menocchio was hauled up twice and ultimately executed. From 1558, the Roman Church began to maintain an index of prohibited books. The print shown here is named as the macabre dance. In this highly interesting woodcut, the coming of the print is associated with the end of the world. The interior of the printer's workshop here is the site of the dance of death. Skeletal figures control printers and its workers. They define and dictate what is to be done and what is to be produced. In most parts of the Europe, literacy rates went up, due to which people wanted production of more books. Other forms of reading, mainly based on entertainment, began to reach ordinary readers. Books of various sizes, serving many different purposes and interests, from the 18th century periodical press developed, which combined information related to the current affairs with entertainment. Journals and newspapers carried information related to wars, trade, and developments in other places. Sir Isaac Newton discoveries were published which influences scientifically minded readers. Almanac, an annual publication giving astronomical data, information about the movements of the sun and the moon, and timings of the full tides and eclipses, and much else that was of importance in the everyday life of the people. Chapbook. It is a pocket-sized book that is sold by traveling peddlers called chapmen. Denominations, subgroups within a religion. Bibliothèque bleue. In France, these were the low-priced small books printed on poor quality paper and bound in cheap blue covers. By the mid-18th century, many people believed that books could change the world and free the society from autocracy. Thus, Mercier declared, the printing press is the most powerful engine of progress, and public opinion is the force that will sweep despotism away. Mercier realized the power of print, so he said, "Tremble, therefore, tyrants of the world. Tremble before the virtual writer." It means the print only can expose the tyrants, and so they are afraid of the writer. Historians argued that print culture created the conditions for the French Revolution. Three types of arguments were put forward. The first one, print popularized the ideas of enlightened thinkers. Then, second one, writing provided a critical commentary on tradition. And the third one, superstition and despotism. The writing of Voltaire and Rousseau were read widely. People saw the world through the eyes of those who were questioning critically and rationally. Print created a new culture of dialogue and debate. Within this public culture, new ideas of social revolution came into being. By the 1980s, there was an outpouring of literature that mocked the royalty and criticized their morality. Print helps in spreading ideas. They accepted some ideas and rejected others and interpreted things in their own way. Print did not directly shape their minds, but it did open up the possibility of thinking differently. Due to education, children started reading. Books for children came into market. First children's press set up in France in 1857. Grimm brothers in Germany published a collection of folk tales in 1812 in a new form. Women started reading as well as writing. Jane Austen, Bronte's sister, Eliot were great women novelists. They redefined the image of women in society. Libraries in England helped in educating the workers and the lower middle class. Workers even started writing. Press came to made out of metal by the late 18th century. Printing technology saw a series of further innovations by the 19th century. During that century, power driven cylindrical press was perfected by Richard M., which was particularly used for printing newspapers. The offset was developed, which was capable of printing 6 colors at a time. By 20th century, electrically operated presses accelerated. Printing operations followed by other series of development like methods of feeding paper improved, quality of plates become better, automatic paper reels and photoelectric controls of the color register were introduced. With this, we come to end of part 1 of chapter Print Culture and the Modern World. In part 2, we will discuss from topic 6 onwards, that is India and the world of prints. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening patiently. Have a good day.